There's a famous story from the Baal Shem Tov, the founder of the Hasidic movement, that once the Baal Shem Tov students came to him and they said, Rebbe, how should we do tshuva? And he told them to go stay at a distant inn and to see what happened there. They didn't quite know what to expect. They traveled to this inn and nothing happened. They went to sleep, and in the middle of the night, they heard noise downstairs. They came downstairs and they saw that the innkeeper was dragging out two large ledger books from a shelf. And he opened them up and he began to read. And in one book he said, I didn't give enough tzedakah this year. I didn't attend the minyan as often as I should have. I fought needlessly with my wife and my children. And then he opened up the other ledger book. And he said, the inn flooded, the cow died, my wife got sick, there was a plague. And he looked up and he said, God, I haven't been so good this year, and you haven't been so good this year. So let's call it even. The essence of the story is that the innkeeper found that in tshuva, not so much that he wanted to change himself, but instead that he wanted to go back to what was before the whole year had transpired. And this year, I think a lot of us are thinking about and looking forward to when we can go back, when we can go back to a normal, when we can go back to what was. So often we think of tshuva as about change and transformation. But in Hasidic thought, tshuva is not really necessarily about change and becoming something new. Instead, it's about going back to who we really are, going back to who we were before events changed us and transformed us, sometimes for the better, but often for the worse. So this year, as we think and we long to go back, as we desire to return to what we had, let's also use that model in how we approach our preparation for Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, how we engage in tshuva. Let's think about going back, perhaps, to relationships that we had with God that we wish we had again. Let's think about going back to relationships with others in our lives that perhaps have changed for the worse over the past year. And let's think of going back to who we were before the events of the past year, or even before that. They have changed and impacted us in ways we wish they hadn't. This year, tshuva is not necessarily, we don't need to focus on how we want to change and transform, but instead how we want to return to our true selves. I'm going to hand it